And so I came up with 6 different buckets of argument that I personally think, each one on its own is compelling. Taken together are quite compelling. And the more interesting thing is these common threads that you will see across all of these somewhat different segments of support. And the first one is an anthropological argument, that it's actually mankind's destiny. So there's this thing called the dawn of mankindness. There's actually no thing, I made that up, but I should have trademarked it like 3P, but I'm not as smart as Pat Riley. So the question is, okay, so are you suggesting that there's some sort of missing nice guy link or something like that? You know, it's like the first caveman to, you know, lay down his saber-toothed shawl over a puddle before he dragged his woman by her hair across into the cave, you know, or first guy who refused to bludgeon his fellow caveman to death with a blunt instrument. No, it's more about that anthropologists agree on the fact that the origin of ethics, of morality, is literally founded in the origin of man and in a Darwinian notion of survival. And some of this, by the way, will spark memories of, you know, Sociology 101 and Business Management 101. I hope so anyway. And the fact is, the theory is that social animals like humankind depend on cooperation. This ancient notion of cooperation and reciprocity for survival. If we nitpick each other, we are much more likely, as Neanderthals, to rid each other of disease-carrying parasites than if we go on our own. We band together, we do well. It's good for the group behavior, it's cooperative behavior. You know, we make fires, we make shelter, we hunt for food. If there's threatening behavior, we condemn it and we push it out because it's bad for the group. So there's an argument to be made that it's actually, and it runs deeper than this, that the notion of cooperation and reciprocity are built into our genetic foundation. There's a second argument to be made, which is probably the easiest one. If you're looking for support for nice guys, you always look to the world of the subject of theology, that there's actually a universal moral imperative to be a nice guy. Now, I talk about a universalist. Tremendous universality is found particularly in the world of global religion. So here are a series of moral principles that are identified or associated with a single religion, right, or religious philosophy. And if I asked 100 people in a mall to guess where they came from, you'd probably get 4 or 5 different, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, when in fact it's I don't know how many people knew this, only your deep philosophical scholars would have known this, but it's the Vedic philosophy. It's the earliest known ethical moral writings, not principles per se, but writings that they discovered in a cave in India, known to humankind. 1500 BC are these principles, and if you read these principles, you could operate a modern-day society by these principles, and you wouldn't be wrong. That's the universality of these nice guy principles, the ancient universality of these nice guy principles. And in fact, they don't call it the golden rule for nothing. The golden rule is actually a reference to the concept of human reciprocity. Human reciprocity. The one thing every religion has in common, when you take away all the bows and the whistles and the rules and the beliefs, is that you should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's why they call it the golden rule. Okay, so let's say you're not convinced by the Darwinian survival principles, and let's say you're not compelled by the promise of heavenly bliss, or the threat of eternal condemnation. It's not good enough for a lot of people, obviously. So take spirituality and faith out of the equation and look at the great philosophers of time. A gentleman by the name of Confucius in 510 BC, when asked by one of his disciples one word by which he would live his life, he answered, not so coincidentally probably, is not reciprocity such a word? And he probably did it more eloquently than that, but you know, I'm trying to picture how Confucius would have done that. But that's what he said. He talked about reciprocity as the one word by which everyone should live their life, to live a productive human existence. And there's another universal principle that existed when you looked at it theologically, anthropologically, and philosophically, and that was this whole concept of balance. Balance. That we need to achieve balance in organizations and avoid extremism. So Aristotle, who was, you know, one of the great Greek philosophers, you always think of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, like everybody knows them, like they were the cool philosophers, like the Brat Pack of, you know, of philosophy. And Aristotle was the youngest, and they actually did talk about a lot of good for the group philosophy and beliefs. But one of the things that they talked about was this balance, this sense of of avoiding the extremes. And when you look at some of these attributes in each of these columns and you look at each of the extremes, you start to recognize people that you worked with maybe in the past. You know, maybe at one point in time you played ball for Coach Excess. You know, who like to be vulgar and irascible and overly ambitious. Or maybe you work for an organization run by a CEO, you know, a chief excess officer, you know, who was boastful and spiteful. And I love the fact that in 510 BC or 350 BC, Aristotle was calling people buffoons. Can't believe that that word existed in 350 BC, but I'm so glad it goes back that far. Or perhaps you work right now with somebody who works for the senior vice president of deficiency. You know, a woman or a man who was just petty and spiritlessness and just callous. Perhaps, despite the fact that we all believe we're nice guys, perhaps there's one of these people or more in this room right now. You know, if there is, you know who you are, and so do we. Let's be honest. So who are these people really? It's not the black guys in the black hats and the guys in the white hats. It's, guess who? It's all of us. Because at any single point in time, one moment or another, to one degree or another, we all venture into off the middle path and into the areas of extreme. The goal and the objective, according to lots of people, not just Aristotle, is to operate your productive, successful life, but like this person is, who is Mr. or Mrs. Nice Guy, right down the middle. Courage, temperance, high-mindedness, good temper, good emotional control, the right amount of ambition, a sincerity, a humility, a suppression of one's ego, and a sense of humor as an important tool. 350 BC. 350 BC, still applicable today. Universality would say that, well, if you were the supreme Buddha, you might actually go after Aristotle on a trademark infringement case because it's the same concept. Different continent, 150 years earlier, the supreme Buddha set out this middle path, same thing, balance. Avoiding extremism, avoiding addiction to self-mortification or indulgence to sense pleasures, or, as my sons would want to pursue, addiction to sense pleasures. Dad, that's the middle path. No, that's the stupid path. The point being, there's a tremendous amount of universality when it comes to balance and when it comes to consistent themes, and it's not just because this is righteous and this is the way it should be. People thought this through, and over thousands of years, this is the best way to run an organization, a community, a group of humans. And so you've got a very compelling argument. It's good for the group, good for the community, good for the soul, good for mankind, good for survival and existence. But the cynics would say,